Serious people who've had sex with their ex-friend's parent. How the hell did you get to that point? What happened after? I had sex with one of my best friend's mom. It was Thanksgiving and I was driving her back home and she confessed that she didn't have sex in years since she was a widow. I told her that I didn't have sex in months since I was moving. We talked a bit more and we sort of flirted, and once we got to her house, she asked me to come inside and we did the deed. Edit, I accidentally put dead instead of deed at the very end. That's my mistake. I did not fuck a dead body. I am not into that shit. I do not fuck dead bodies, it is my least favorite thing to do. When I was 20, I got accepted to university in Canada. I'm a French guy, and my mum put together a barbecue to celebrate it with my best friends, among which was my actual best friend, girl my age, who lived far so she would stay the night. My mum and dad were already getting divorced and sleeping in separate rooms back then, so there was no doubt they will ever get back to normalcy in terms of their relationship. After most people left and I was drunking my way around talking about Canada with another friend, my now former best friend and my dad made sure my mum went to bed and carried on drinking together. All I remember after is me trying to figure out where the hell my friend was in the morning as the guest room was empty. It took so much fighting denial to realize she had been sleeping with my dad all night. Mum was destroyed, so was I. They both denied it and said they just talked. I still cannot believe this happened, but with retrospective my dad has been such a crap dad to his kids and wife, and that friend has not been nice to me either. Edit, wow, I did not expect this story to go that far. Thank you for the awards and the heartwarming comments. First time sharing something that personal so publicly, but I am glad I did. My dad slept with my best friend when I was 15. It caused my parents' divorce. They actually got married when she turned 18, but they both cheated so much it didn't last. In other words, I feel your pain, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. I hooked up with my student's mom. I was teaching an after-school program, so I saw her almost every week at pickup. Sometimes her husband would pick up, yes, she was married, and we would talk a lot to the point that we became friendly. Well, I was going through a divorce and happened to bring that up one time, and she very quickly gave me her phone number, put her hands on me. She was not being shy about it. Something like out of a movie. Next time I saw her she asked me out to lunch and I said sure. We met up, had lunch, she paid, and she went on to tell me about how her and her husband were not sexually involved with each other and they were free to see other people. We went back to my place and the sex was wild. That was the only time we hooked up though, as I started dating someone shortly thereafter. Her kid was one of those "all fuck your mom" Xbox Live kids, so I would just chuckle to myself when I saw him. I had sex with a good friend's mom. Looking back, it's really messed up. She had been working on me for months. I was only 18. I'm ashamed of it. Fortunately the friend never found out. But as an adult, I now look back at it and realize that I was in over my head and she should have known better. Edit. Wow everyone, I appreciate the sympathy. Let me just tell you a little more so you don't worry about me. Was I groomed? Maybe looking back, I was. But I was certainly no virgin. The reason I feel ashamed of it is because it was my friend's mom. I could have had her anytime and she offered pretty often. So one night I decided to take her up on it. This doesn't affect me today, probably never did in any deep way, except feeling like crap because it was a betrayal of my friend. But as an adult, I find her decisions disgusting. And as an adult, I realize that my 18-year-old self didn't know anything about life and rarely thought of anything beyond getting laid. I'm not hard on myself about it these days, but I was for several years. What you're describing sounds like grooming. One of my first girlfriends in high school. Her mom used to seriously tell her that she should give me her virginity. Often. Then mom started flirting with me. One day while at their house mom grabbed me in the hallway and kissed me. After we split up mom used to still call me every now and then. One time asked if I wanted to come over and hang out. I did and mom got my virginity removed. Well, I was a horny guy, and my friend's mom was, well, available, really. I'm not proud of it, it just kind of happens sometimes, and every time I felt shame. I don't know, like I was betraying my friend's trust? Worst thing was, she was actually a friend of my mom too, so I kinda saw her on a regular basis. Oh, so it was on the regular for you. A friend at school's mum was pretty hot. She was relatively young compared to most of our mums and his dad was quite a bit older and absolutely minted. When we were young teenagers it was a bit of a running joke to give him shit about his hot mom or how his dad was her sugar daddy. Fast forward to the end of sixth form, end of high school for US readers, when we were all 18 and he was having a party at his massive house to celebrate. Most people were outside getting drunk in the garden, but I'd had a bad few months, family stuff, so wasn't really feeling it. I decided to go and chill inside for a bit, and in the kitchen I found his mum just drinking wine and looking forlornly out the window. I asked if she was okay and she pretty much unloaded her issues. She was miserable, she hated his dad, she'd settled down without having a life first, felt trapped because she couldn't afford to leave, loved her kids etc. I opened up about my issues too with my family, and it actually felt good to talk to a relative stranger about it. I now realize I should have been seeing a therapist. Anyway, one thing led to another and she started making out with me. I didn't stop her. She then led me upstairs and the rest is history. On the one hand, it was pretty awesome, she was smoking hot, I was pretty inexperienced, and she really knew how to communicate in the bedroom. On the other hand though, I knew I was betraying my friend and fucking up his parents' marriage, plus I could hear all my friends laughing and partying outside. A few months later they got divorced, and I understand she got a bit shafted in the deal because she'd cheated on him. I don't know if that was me or she did it with someone else too. I am pretty ashamed about it, but I also realize she was using me too. I was never under any illusion we had some special connection or anything, but I can see she just wanted to fuck someone out of catharsis or frustration, and maybe, subconsciously, to force the problems in the marriage into the daylight so she could finally get out. TLDR, friend's mum was hot but miserable in her marriage. Fucked 18 yomi at a party to feel younger and probably to sabotage her marriage. Sorry, you did the what? Removed. This reminds me of the mom of my cousin's wife. When her kids were younger they used to bring home kids from school that had it really rough in their life. She would talk with them and help them, but one thing that was interesting she mentioned was that she was glad to have parents around who would initiate physical contact with them. She said she knew these youngsters needed physical contact since some of them had been feeling lonely or mistreated for a while, but she said she couldn't be the one giving it to them. Now reading these comments, I understand what she meant by that. I slept with a childhood friend's dad while visiting my hometown. Long story short, he's bi and divorced, and I was browsing on a gay hookup app. It's a small countryside town, so the only things to do are ketamine, sex or leave. He messages me and he clearly doesn't recognize me because I don't look the same as I did a decade ago. I recognize him, and the entire time I'm thinking this is really weird, but I'm bored and he's relatively handsome and charming, as far as charming goes on Grindr lol, so I figure hey, why not? And hindsight is 20/20 because the sex was fun, but the entire time I'm thinking this is my friend's dad, he has literally driven me to school before. Just left an overall odd feeling. My friend doesn't know, and it's going to stay that way because we don't really talk whatsoever now, and it'd be weird to just pop up like, your dad jackhammered my prostate, and it was kinda weird. I slept with my friend's mother at a music fest, was very high on acid. We were all hanging out, me, my two friends who were dating, we'll call them David and Claire's mother. Claire doesn't feel too hot, so David takes her back to the campsite and me and her mother are just left to the festival. We get some drinks in, do some dancing, one thing leads to another, and yeah. Afterwards we just sort of chilled in my tent for a few hours before hitting the party tent, having a wee cuddle. Claire actually walked in on us after we had finished, and I was so high I didn't even really know what was happening, I just knew that I had done something very wrong. So the festival ends and we all go home, and of course the sensible thing to do would have been to try patch things up with Claire and never talk to her mother again. You will find, however, that I am not a sensible man, and proceeded to not only see her again, but date her on and off for 4 years. I have so many stories about those 4 years. A good friend of mine had this happen to her back in high school. She caught her also high school-aged boyfriend sexting her 40-something-year-old mother, and it led to her mom and her stepdad's divorce. All while she was 17 years old. She still has a strained relationship with her mom to this day. We are 25 now, so this happened almost 10 years ago. I don't think you can ever get over that kind of betrayal by your own mother. I believe she still has a good relationship with her now ex-stepdad though. Her mom is now dating a man her age, but she will always be a predator in my eyes that seduces her daughter's boyfriend. So gross. A friend of mine's mom basically hit on a number of us in the group, and sadly it just became kind of a matter of time before one of us caved, and it eventually happened. He saw it coming. I feel bad for him. An amp#X200B, recently divorced mid-30s hot mom and a group of 18-years-olds. It wasn't me who did it. I went to HS with a kid whose mom was like this. She'd let him throw big parties and she would get topless in the hot tub with teenagers. It was extremely awkward because most of us didn't want to go in the backyard when she was out there because we didn't feel comfortable. Several of his friends had sex with her and one of them ended up dating her for like 5 years and moving with her to LA. It was very bizarre. I'm on mobile. So apologies for the formatting. I was at a friend's birthday party. My friend was in her mid-20s, I was 30, her mom was in her early 50s. She and her mom took really good care of me after my father passed. They made sure I was eating and that I actually left the apartment every day, as I was prone to just sit around being a depressed sad sack. Friend's mom and I used to get stoned together. So when we were at her daughter's birthday party at her mom's house, she called me to her room so we could smoke a joint. She didn't want to do it in front of everyone, and it definitely wasn't the first time we'd gotten a little high together. So it was somewhat familiar territory. Maybe it was the weed, or the wine, or both, but as we're smoking and chatting, I just leaned in and kissed her. To my surprise, she kissed me back, and we proceeded to make out like a couple of horny teenagers on the love seat in her bedroom. She stopped for a moment, looked at me and said, "Well, had I known you were interested we could have done this a long time ago." We made out a little more, and I told her that we should stop because we're going to get caught. So we kissed and groped one another a little more, and returned to the party. The next day she stopped by my apartment to see how I was doing, which wasn't uncommon. That day was slightly different. She was always a very good-looking woman, but that day she had more carefully applied makeup, some nice-looking earrings and a blouse that showed off more cleavage than usual. I invited her in and we were off to the races. We both had a great time, but I thought of my friend and said that we probably shouldn't do this again. She didn't really respond to it and we continued to cuddle for a while. The next day she called me and said that she thought she may have lost her earring on my bed or my couch, which I thought was BS, but it turns out that the earring was indeed in between the cushions of my couch. She came over to retrieve it and we went at it again, and again, and again. This went on for months until I finally was moving out of state. It never happened again, we never spoke of it, and my friend never found out. Sadly, my friend's mom passed 5 years ago. I'd thought about telling her but it just seemed like a bad idea. Ripped Julie. You were smoking hot and just an all-around great woman. Edit, wow. I had no idea this would get so much attention. Thanks for all the upvotes. Oh, this became very sad. Maybe the only actually sweet story on here. P.S. Not telling her is most definitely the right move. Deleted. Imagine your friend watching this comment and figuring out it is you. Removed.